Wisconsin Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, or CREP, is a resource for those actively working the land to use to help meet their conservation goals, particularly those who currently till or graze land along rivers and streams. CREP is an offshoot of the USDA Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. Wisconsin CREP is a joint effort between the federal, state, and county governments that has been designed to complement working agriculture and the protection of Wisconsin's soils and water resources. The goal of CREP is to reduce ag runoff along streams and wetlands by installing vegetative buffers and create wildlife habitat along waterways surrounded by agricultural uses. CREP offers landowners an opportunity to receive financial incentive to voluntarily stop agricultural production on land abutting streams or wetlands. In CREP areas, landowners install and maintain filter strips along the waterways, or return continually flooded fields to wetlands while leaving the remainder of the adjacent land in agricultural production, and in return, CREP provides landowners with incentive payments, annual rental payments, and cost share payments. There are many different land cover and management practice options that are available in the CREP program. The practice installed on a property depends on the desires of the landowner and site factors. Some of the more commonly installed practices include filter strips, riparian buffers, and wetland restorations. The size of land put into CREP is variable, thus allowing farmers to put what land is needed into the program while leaving the remainder for landowners can enroll a total of up to 100,000 acres in the CREP program, and the state has committed up to $28 million in bond authority to pay for their portion of those acres. Land eligible for CREP must be located in one of the 4 Wisconsin CREP project areas. The project areas cover about 50 designated CREP counties and are the Riparian Project Area, Southern Grassland Project Area, Northern Grassland Project Area, and Lake Superior Project Area as indicated on the map. Each of the CREP project areas has slightly different provisions for eligibility and landowner payment. Generally, in Wisconsin, land is eligible for CREP if it is located in one of the designated project areas, has a history of crop or pasture land, and is within 150 feet of a ditch, stream, lake, or wetland. The typical CREP site consists of buffers ranging from 30 to 150 feet wide along a stream and covers an area of about 10 acres. As mentioned in the earlier slide, land eligibility requirements are slightly different in each of the CREP project areas. For all CREP project areas, land enrolled must meet the cropping history requirements. This means that between the years of 2008 to 2013, the land must have been in cropland, rotated cropland, or been marginal pasture land. Land in the riparian project area must also fall within 150 feet of an eligible stream or water body, and the minimum width of the CREP enrolled land is 20 feet. In the Southern Grassland project area, land has to be both within 1,000 feet of an eligible stream or water body, along with be considered highly erodible land, or HEL. The minimum width for a CREP enrolled land is also 20 feet in this project area. In the Northern Grassland project area, land has to be either within 1,000 feet of an eligible stream or water body, in addition to be considered highly erodible land. The minimum width for a CREP enrolled land is also 20 feet in the Northern Grassland area. For the Lake Superior project area, the land has to be both within a minimum of 200 feet to a maximum of 300 feet of an eligible stream or water body. Additionally, for many of the practices within the 4 project areas, if the CREP installed practice encumbers 60% or more of the original field area, then all of the land in that field can be enrolled into CREP. Within the CREP project areas, land adjacent to the most perennial and seasonal water bodies is eligible to enroll in CREP. Perennial water bodies include annual running rivers, streams, creeks, and ditches, as well as lakes, ponds, and permanent wetlands. Seasonal streams usually have a bed and a bank, are normally located at the head of a perennial stream, and carry water seasonally. These are typically shown as dotted lines on USGS maps. Seasonal streams are not gullies or areas where water runs only after a rainfall or storm. There are many different conservation practice options throughout the CREP program. Practice installed on a property depends on both site factors and the desires of the landowner. Conservation practices include filter strips, riparian buffers, grass waterways, wetland restorations, marginal pasture land, habitat buffers, permanent introduced grasses, permanent native grasses, grass prairie ecosystem restorations, and established legumes and grasses. The size of the CREP practice installed on the land is variable and can be a strip as narrow as 20 feet with no minimum acreage. This allows farmers to put what land is needed into the program and leave the remainder for agricultural production. A few of the more common CREP practices installed in Wisconsin are the filter strip, riparian buffer, and wetland restoration. We will review some of these guidelines for these practices in the following slides. CREP filter strips are typically strips of land located between crops and water bodies that are planted to cool season or warm season grasses and forbs. The purpose is to provide vegetation to remove nutrients, sediment, organic matter, pesticides, and other pollutants from surface runoff and subsurface flow, thus creating improved habitat for aquatic organisms and habitat for wildlife. CREP filter strips can be as narrow as 20 feet and up to 150 feet wide with no acreage size limitations. Permanently vegetated stream bank areas are included when measuring width. However, these areas are not eligible to include as CREP acres since they do not meet cropping history requirements. The distance used for determining the width is an average width. This is done to create straight field boundaries on the remaining agricultural production side. Maintenance required for filter strips often includes periodic spot mowing to control invasive woody vegetation such as box elder and willow trees. CREP riparian buffer strips are typically strips of land located between crops and water bodies that are planted to tree and shrubs. The purpose is to provide vegetation to reduce sediment, nitrogen and phosphorus runoff, and cut stream bank erosion. This creates improved habitat for aquatic organisms and habitat for wildlife, but also can be economic sites for growing various forest products, from seeds and nuts to high-quality, fast-growing timber. Riparian buffer strips in the riparian project area can be as narrow as 35 feet and up to 150 feet wide, and in the Lake Superior project area, from 200 to 300 feet wide. There is not an acreage size limitation, and they are often planted on marginal pasture land. Permanently vegetated stream bank area is included when measuring width and is considered eligible for CREP when buffer strips are installed on marginal pasture. The distance used for determining the width is an average width. Riparian buffers are frequently designed to include areas designated for stream crossings and water access for cattle. Maintenance required for riparian buffers often includes periodic spot mowing to control invasive woody vegetation such as box elder and willow trees, as well as replanting desired trees. Wetland restorations under CREP are planted grasses, forms, and legumes tolerant to wet soils, often on fields with hydric. The purpose is to rehabilitate the functions of wetland ecosystems that have been previously converted to agricultural use. Restored functions include increasing sediment trapping efficiencies, improving surface and groundwater quality, preventing erosion, providing habitat for waterfowl and other wetland species, and reducing flooding. CREP wetland restorations have a maximum size limit of 40 acres. Land enrolled must be cropland that is considered farm wetland or prior converted cropland by USDA NRCS, hydrologically connected to an eligible water body, and composed of 51% or greater hydric soil. Wetland restoration must include an area of filter strip or riparian buffer adjacent to the wetland area. Wetland restorations typically entail breaking drainage tiles and plugging drainage. Landowners have two different contract options in Wisconsin CREP, a 15-year agreement or a perpetual easement. The 15-year agreement is a contract to install and maintain practices for 15 years in exchange for federal and state incentive payments and cost sharing. The landowner enjoys recreational use of the land during the contract period. The restrictions on land use are specified in the agreement and state that the land must be maintained in the vegetation type indicated in the conservation plan. If you sell the property, the state may require a transfer of the agreement to a new owner. Repayment of state program funds may be required if the agreement is violated. The perpetual conservation easement is a permanent land use restriction which will be held by the county or the state with an underlying 15-year federal contract. The landowner enjoys recreational use of the land in perpetuity. The restrictions on the land use are specified in the easement and generally state that the land must be maintained in the vegetation type indicated in the conservation plan. Also, no structures may be built on the lands enrolled. Through a conservation plan, the landowner may indicate what types of uses they desire to have after the federal 15-year contract expires. Some of these uses may include timber harvest, limited pasturing or haying, prescribed burns, or other management techniques. Repayment of state program funds are required if the easement is violated. Financial incentives of CREP include cost sharing of conservation practice installation, upfront incentive payments, and annual soil rental payments. CREP participants on average receive total combined state and federal payments per acre of $2,000 for the 15-year contracts and $2,850 per acre for the perpetual conservation easements over the agreement timeframe. On the federal side, the USDA makes rental payments annually to landowners for 15 years. Rates are determined by soil type, county, and whether the land was cropland or marginal pasture land. Annual rental rates for cropland range from $17 to $179 per acre. The USDA also provides an additional annual federal incentive payment of 35% to 60% the annual rental rate, depending on the practices installed. In addition to annual payments, the federal government pays $100 per acre as an upfront, one-time signing incentive payment, or SIP payments, for filter strips, riparian buffers, grassed waterways, and wetland restorations enrolled for the first time. The state of Wisconsin also provides an additional one-time upfront incentive payment of 1.5 times the annual rental rate for 15-year agreements and 12 times the annual rental rate for perpetual conservation easements. The federal government pays 50% of the cost of installing the eligible practices, along with a practice incentive payment, or PIP, of 40% of the practice installation costs. Additionally, the state pays 20% of the costs of installing eligible practices. Landowners should check with their tax advisor to determine if these payments have tax implications for them. Approximately 4,000 landowners have rolled more than 44,000 acres across Wisconsin into the CREP program since its beginning in 2001. Of the lands enrolled in the program, more than 400 contracts are perpetual conservation easements that cover about 7,000. Currently, the land enrolled in CREP creates buffers along 1,500 miles of shoreline, as well as establishing approximately 11,500 acres of grassland habitat. Environmental analysis reports show that today, CREP practices annually reduce runoff of 69,000 tons of sediment, 75,000 pounds of nitrogen, and 140,000 pounds of phosphorus in Wisconsin. Each county that participates in CREP has signed an agreement with the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, which defines the role for the county and state with implementing the CREP program in Wisconsin. In general, the county is the landowner's first point of contact for the state side of Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. The county works with NRCS and FSA on site determination, assists landowners in the application process, develops 15-year agreements, helps implement the conservation plan, and distributes state-issued incentive and cost-share payment checks. Moreover, county staff are the best source for the promotion of the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. The process of rolling land into CREP involves federal, state, and county officials as well as landowners. Although the process seems long and complex, it does work well, as we can see with over 3,500 contacts. There are many tools available to counties and landowners at the department website, as well as staff available at the state to assist you with implementing CREP.